An update to our breaking news. Questionable signatures on the petitions in the Second Congressional District race are resulting in more lawsuits. We have confirmed attorney Gary Byler is set to file a series of lawsuits by Wednesday. Byler tells 13 News Now he is filing suit against at least 2 people who signed the affidavits on the petitions in question.
Those people swore they witnessed the signing of the petitions and that the signatures are not forged. Byler would not confirm the names of the victims or the defendants, but we have told you some of the signatures in question were collected by staffers of Republican incumbent Congressman Scott Taylor.
Taylor's campaign staff will not comment because of the ongoing investigation. It's worth noting for context, Taylor beat Byler in a hotly contested Republican primary for the House of Delegates back in 2013. Now, this comes as the Democrats file new evidence in their lawsuit trying to keep independent Sean Brown off the ballot.
13 News Now investigative reporter Laura Geller joins us with the latest.
Well, late Friday, the Democrats asked a judge to invalidate all of Brown's petitions. Their argument focuses on inconsistencies with Brown's address, which 13 News Now has told you about. Some of our stories are actually included as exhibits in the filing. Lawyers argue none of the addresses listed on the front of the petitions were in fact Brown's address.
Here's what we're talking about. Many of the petitions show this address, 5887 Campus Drive, as the residence address of the candidate. We can't show you a map of it because, as we've reported, according to property records, it doesn't exist. The other petitions show this address, 3683 Windmill Drive, as Brown's address. But according to the filing, business records show during this time frame that property was vacant. Democrats are using a part of Virginia law, which we've shown you, to argue all of Brown's petitions should be invalidated. It reads, if the petition does not have the name and address of the candidate on the front of the form, the petition shall be rendered invalid. Brown's attorney argues her correct address is not material. What's at issue is people signing the petition to support Brown. Her correct address on the document shouldn't matter. The filings also cite what the independent candidate told us.
I had no idea, knew nothing about what was happening.
The party, however, alleges there's evidence staffers for Republican incumbent Scott Taylor, who gathered many of the signatures in question, were working in concert with Brown. Lawyers believe petitions circulated by Brown and those circulated by Taylor's staffers appear to have been made on the same copy machine. This line near the candidate's name appears on all of them.
The Democrats say more information is being uncovered almost daily. A hearing in this case is scheduled for Wednesday of next week in Richmond Circuit Court. Laura Geller, 13 News Now.